It looks like there's quite a bit on here, but this cotton will collapse down and compress down to fill out your seat cover. So it's going to appear that you have too much there, but you really don't. Now our scrim material is going to hold it all in place and allow us to anchor it on the back side of the seat frame. Okay, then we want to flip it over, kind of leaving this all secured. And at this point, we just want to trim off the extra scrim and then start to anchor it right to the seat springstem. And what this does, it will hold all the cotton in place and allow it not to shift around, and it will help your seat cover. When you slide that seat cover over the top of it, it's not going to bunch up and ball up. Now, if you don't have any of this material, you can use a similar material, like a bed sheet material, will do the same exact thing. All it's used for is to hold the cotton in place while your seat cover is being installed. And on the bottom side here, I want to get a close-up of how we're rolling this up in here and just securing it right to our seat springs here. And we're doing this all the way around the whole perimeter. You want to pull it taut as you're pulling it around your seat frame. That way there's no wrinkles on the front side, so when he flips this back over on the front side, it should look relatively smooth to aid in the installation of his seat cover. Now this is the way they were originally done also. I know some people like to put some foam on these backrests, but it's a lot more comfortable ride, and this is the way they were done originally also. Now towards the top, you just kind of want to overlap it and tuck it under so there's not a big bunchy ball up in the corner. As long as you anchor that scrim to any portion here, you can attach it to the seat springs or the frame or wherever it's going to hold that in place. And if, as you see what Randy did, if you feel there's too much in one particular area, you can just reach in and grab a handful of cotton and pull it back out if need be. Now, if you don't feel you have it adjusted right, you can take your side cutters and cut those hog rings back off and take some additional cotton out if you want. Now, when we flip this over, we should have a nice smooth cotton layer. It's all secured. You see, it's when we put that seat cover on, you'll be able to slide that cover right on over the top of it. It's not too thick where it looks overstuffed. It looks nice and factory. So what we'll do is we'll do the same thing on the other seat, and then we'll be ready for our bottom seat cover. Now that we're ready for our seat covers, we need to install the rear wire and the front wire into our seat cover. We've made some new wires that fit into these little pockets, these little sleeves. Now you can use your originals, but if they're in pretty rough shape, you can just go ahead and use a heavy gauge wire to hold in there, and what that will do is when you go to pull tension on this, it will pull evenly all the way across that whole front skirt. So we'll start by positioning the seat cover symmetrically on here, starting with our center out, right where our hinges go in. You can see it's neatly cut and trimmed out there, so it's very easy to align. And we'll go ahead and we'll start with our back corners. We always start with our back corners first, and we anchor those. And a lot of times we put a little piece of tape over these outside corners so that way the seat cover doesn't get torn or ripped. And we'll go ahead and anchor it with a couple of hog rings, just so the material doesn't rip. You want to anchor both sides, and the posts that stick out the side here, a lot of people make the mistake and cut these right away. We don't cut these until we start to secure the base of it. That way we know exactly where it's going to line up, and you don't want to cut the holes that are too big and it looks unsightly when you're looking at the side of the seat. Now we want to wrap the front corners around. And this piping here sometimes makes a difference which way it lays before you flip the cover over. We like to lay it flat this way and then fold it over. You can kind of see what type of finished look you're gonna get. It's a nice clean edge all the way wrapped around. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now what's easiest is if you grab a hold of the seat cover, okay, and you can apply some pressure to it. These things are sewn together very, very well. So you can position the welt where you want to along the outside edge of your seat frame. and then start to wrap your cover over top of it. You know, you can kind of get a feel for how your seat cover is going to look after it's complete. It's starting to look real good, and it's not even really anchored yet. So what we're going to want to do from this point on is flip the seat over, and then we'll compress the seat springs and get the cover to pull tight. Now this is where, if your seat cover is not aligned properly or symmetrical, you can kind of see where the seams line up here. They're almost exact on the seat frame, so you can tell this seat is installed symmetrically. You don't want to position it incorrect, or else you're going to get quite a few wrinkles in it, which we don't want. And the remainder of this is just compressing the seat springs down and attaching the remainder of your listing wires. I'll get you some hog rings. Now, if you don't feel you have it positioned right, you can always take your side cutters and cut these off. I'll demonstrate one after Randy puts it in. Let's say he doesn't have this aligned properly. You can just grab a hold of this hog ring, pull it off, and kind of, you know, rework it a little bit and put it exactly where you want to. Now we want to come over to our sides and do the same thing. But as you're coming to your sides here, you want to work your way to the back, so that way this welt will ride right along the inside edge of your frame here. I'll give you a hand pushing that down. Makes it much easier to compress these springs down to put the hog rings on. It's nice to have a little helper in this part. But you should be able to do this all by yourself if you are attempting it by yourself. Randy does these all the time by himself. Now what we'll want to do is come down through, and we'll take a peek on the front side, see how we're looking as far as the outside perimeter, where it looks pretty good. And we're going to reach inside, and the first wires that we put in this cover, this cover is going to tuck down